Legal experts, lawyers who will be joining us from different parts of the world to discuss about this topic, because we've seen what is happening in the ecosystem, the way things are happening. So after this, we'll be able to know if actually the legal sector really have something, a part to play in this ecosystem or not. Actually, even if they have a part to play, a vital role to play in the ecosystem, we know how individuals and startups can engage their services to make this happen. So joining us today, we have personalities joining us. We have Ashata Mamjosi. Ashata Mamjosi is lead fintech, blockchain, and emerging tech at Calm Legal. Ashata, you are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Next in line is Charis Savite. Charis is a corporate lawyer and regulation, innovation, and blockchain. Charis, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's our pleasure. So we have another person that will be joining us soon. Maybe he's having issues or challenges joining us. We'll be very shortly. We'll be having Boulevard Adate Toimbo. Boulevard is the head crypto asset capital formation practice, less Photos.io. So very soon he will be joining us, and maybe he's having issues with explanations. So let's get started. Before we start, I am the moderator, Lee Uchoma. So thank you, our audience, for joining us. We are grateful you joined us. You brought out your time to join us on this interesting discussion. So we are grateful also to our sponsors, MTech, Nimedis, and Niamey University Blockchain. These are our sponsors. So Boulevard is with us. Boulevard, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
You're welcome. It's our pleasure. So moving straight to the topic, we are talking about the role of legal sector in blockchain and crypto space, and we know how the ecosystem is. So people may be wondering what are the roles that this sector will play in the blockchain and crypto space. So we'll be asking, blockchain and crypto, is the legal sector needed in this ecosystem? So Charles, we can start with you.
Yeah. Well, this is I think is number one question to address to a lawyer, because over the last few years, definitely with all these discussions and developments and trends in the blockchain and crypto industries, lawyers are trying to find out how they can fit in the discussion. Apparently, this is also not just a topic that it's interesting by itself, but also it is a real challenge for lawyers to understand something that poses so many new things and new challenges, especially in the business sector. So we have to admit that all of us, we tried from the very beginning to understand how we can, what is our role in this discussion. And definitely there is a very key role to play in this industry. It's not just to understand how it works. I mean, what new things the technology brings forward, and also what this cryptocurrency business environment, transaction environment can also brings in our daily practice. But it's not just this to understand, it's also to take it a step forward, how to to consult, how to advise our clients in order to come over the different and various difficulties and challenges that they can have when they deal with these two industries. And allow me first of all to say that I'm talking about two different industries because they are two different things. I mean, blockchain technology is a broader picture, and cryptocurrency is just one application of this technology. So although we started on the other way around, placing too much interest and too much emphasis on cryptocurrencies rather than the underlying technology, the reality shows that blockchain technology is something which is universally acceptable. It's there. So when it comes for a lawyer to advise, for example, a tech company, a startup company, definitely lawyers need to understand, first of all, not precisely the technology itself, but the way that the technology can affect and can interact with existing other technologies or business models. But when it comes to cryptocurrencies, definitely we're talking about a new financial system or ecosystem, if you like, where you can, where we are called to understand and advise our clients about the legitimacy, first of all, of this industry,
Okay.
and then how they can further develop their business models if they are based on crypto.
Okay. Charles, yeah, I really understand what you're saying because we know how the ecosystem is, and it's something that is new. People are not that used to it. So I will be moving to Boulevard. Boulevard, how do you see you've seen the ecosystem? Is the legal sector really needed in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space? Boulevard, Boulevard, are you with us? It's like we okay. I'll shut out. Maybe you can continue.
Sure.
Uh,
Thanks. Right.
okay.
I'm sorry. I think Boulevard was
Very
trying to.
much for the question. You muted me, so I just unmuted. Sorry.
Your network, Boulevard, we can't hear you.
Question.
Boulevard, we can't hear you. I have to mute
Okay,
you.
maybe you can go forward.
We can't hear you. Ashata, you can go ahead with the question.
For us, the role of a lawyer has been extremely dependent on the purpose of use of such a technology, which means that if use of blockchain-based tokens or issuance of crypto assets has been towards fundraising, then that brings in a different entire conversation about how should these tokens be issued, how should the fundraising be treated, is it at par with, let's say, a regular share or securities kind of placement and offering. So that's been one sector. Pure blockchain based clients who have used technology to just leverage, to just sort of enhance the existing business models. Like we've worked with a lot of medtech clients, we've worked with a lot of track and trace solutions. So in that case, I think what we've seen is that the sector specific laws and requirements and compliances have played a major role, especially in, for instance, in medicine and in healthcare. Similarly, in what we are seeing more and more surge in the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa region, is it's the increasing trend of CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, which may or may not be based on blockchain, but essentially that's another factor when it comes to the policy making in itself, when it comes to the advice to the regulators on how it should be implemented. So that's something that, again, that's another stream that we have witnessed is very forthcoming in the blockchain space in itself. So it's the question whether lawyers are required in blockchain sector. Definitely yes. I don't see another way of implementing blockchain, or rather using it in the most effective fashion, unless you have a lawyer telling you what should be done and how exactly should be done. Simple example, we've had countless clients on just blockchain as a service mandates, so that they're trying to give blockchain as a service to other companies. Now just comparing it with how we used to have the SaaS kind of, the software as a service kind of arrangement, that's again something, there are a lot of nitty-gritties which come into it when you're speaking of blockchain. Data protection is a major concern when one speaks of blockchain, because it's kind of fundamentally very live right now to kind of have a conversation on that. So I think there are a lot of sectors that lawyers can look into when it comes to blockchain. But as I said earlier, the purpose of use of this technology is something that is going to determine what role you're playing in the entire ecosystem.
Interesting. We've seen how the ecosystem has been running, and we understand how the system is. And having heard from you people, legal practitioners, explain this ecosystem and the services that you say that the legal sector is really needed in the ecosystem. So, having known that that you are needed in the ecosystem, so what role are you going to play in the legal sector in the blockchain space? Still with you, Ashata.
Um, what role specifically, if you were to ask, what role is it that we play as a firm? Is that your question, if I got it correctly?
Yes, yes. Which role do you think you're going to play the legal sector in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space?
Right. So I think the way we've looked at it is that we've looked at the technology as a whole, especially from the perspective, because all of us know that use of blockchain started with the ICOs, and that kind of surged the entire fundraising market, and there were a lot of, obviously, issues, legal issues, which arose with that. So I think as a firm, we have, luckily enough, we have as well progressed from that phase where earlier we saw a lot of interest in issuance of utility tokens, for instance. Now thankfully that has subsided a bit, and even though clients and a lot of projects issue utility tokens, they're not exactly doing it for the purposes of fundraising. We've now thankfully graduated to more sophisticated models where we've seen a lot of clients intending to issue security tokens. Similarly, we have seen a significant growth in the mixed models of crowdfunding and tokenization. So we have worked with quite a few clients who have set up their crowdfunding platforms, but the entities and the companies that are listed on the platforms are issuing security tokens instead of what a normal share or debt securities offering. So that's again something that we've seen majorly coming into play. Similarly, on a pure blockchain side, I think what we've seen is that there's been a significant increase in blockchain as a service. Similarly, there have been a lot of platforms from the perspective of data storage. We have seen that they have started utilizing blockchain more heavily, because it sort of serves a better means of blockchain storage as compared to let's say other solutions which are available. So I think the way I look at it now, more and more, is going to be that blockchain will penetrate into more specialized sectors. Like insurtech is a very niche, and it's a very upcoming sector which blockchain is yet to tap into. Similarly, real estate is something that so far we've seen in this part of the world, they've used blockchain for record keeping purposes, for keeping a track of all the title sale or all the ownership deeds that have been signed, but more so into fractional ownership of real estate. That is something that I see, at least in the MENA region, it's going to surge pretty fast. And as I said, if digital currencies are based on blockchain, that again is going to be another sector which is going to rise pretty quickly from what I can sort of foresee.
Thank you very much. Still to our attendees, if you have any question concerning this topic, you can forward it on the chat or on the comment section so that we can ask our panelists any question that you have in mind. So with you, Charis, you've seen what she said. What role do you think the legal sector will play in this sector, in this blockchain space?
Yeah, I'm 100%. I agree with what Akshada said before, which is what we experience globally happening nowadays with businesses or individuals that they want to enter this new crypto world or blockchain world. So what I would say in terms of our role is that me personally, I believe that we have a far more great role to play when it comes to crypto industry, because for two main reasons. The first one is because we need to find and we need to understand and we need to interpret and apply standard legal principles and rules that are applicable in what we can call as a conventional system. Either this is financial or investment regulatory frameworks, and see how we can apply those principles and rules in something which is very unique and in some cases advocates even opposite principles. And I'm speaking about decentralization, I'm speaking about anonymity, all these things that are coming, are dominating the crypto, discussions, the discussions between crypto enthusiasts and crypto friendly, and those people that they believe and they look in the crypto industry something changing. So we need to place and we need to see how we can apply the conventional rules in this system. But at the same time, we are talking about also new things, new regulations, new principles that are specifically custom-made, let's say, for cryptocurrencies. And I'm talking about regulations addressed specifically to crypto exchange platforms or digital wallet custodians. So these rules are rules that are addressed only to these businesses. So for the crypto industry, we definitely have a very key role to play when it comes to law enforcement or interpretation and so on. When it comes to blockchain now, on the other side, me personally, I believe that what we need to do as lawyers is to see how we can adopt this new technology for our own service. It's not just advising a startup company how they can implement or how they can develop their model, their business model, if they follow blockchain technology, which is of course something that happens, but strictly speaking, this is not something that requires a lot of involvement from a legal point of view. Personally, I believe that we have to find ways to take advantage of this technology for our own benefit when it comes to the provision of our services. And we need to find solutions, we need to find blockchain solutions that they will decrease the time of the service and at the same time decrease the cost of our service. These two things are definitely very important for every single client out there.
Okay, we have a question in the box. Let me check it out. We have Daya Kazem Zadeh. He asking, my question is about the role of IP protection in blockchain. The person went ahead to ask, what are some approaches to patenting blockchain technologies for your clients? For example, for me, the challenge is that we cannot focus on the core component of blockchain technology as it too abstract and goes against interoperability. Therefore, patent application need to focus on how these specialized sectors are making use of the blockchain. So this, I don't know if you understand the question, or you can answer it. The question is long, you can see it on your screen.
Yeah.
So
Well, I can
Charlie, do you,
say, yeah, I can
okay.
say a couple of things about this question, which is, yeah, this is a big topic in blockchain. I mean, IP protection definitely fits perfectly with blockchain technology in the sense that it satisfies blockchain technology and satisfies the need to have a unique identity of the product. All right, so we can from the development of a pattern or whatever, we can assign this specifically to the actual owner of this, and this information can be on the blockchain system and is traceable and is recordable. And everybody who comes across or engage in one way or another with this pattern or whatever is protected by IP, intellectual property, he can monitor and he can take actual control of his product, of his development throughout the entire life of it. So yeah, blockchain technology from the very first moment has been strongly associated with things like IP protection.
Okay, Ashanta, do you have anything to say before we continue?
Right. I think just to add on to what Sharish said, the way I see it is that it is an area of concern. Blockchain interoperability, indeed, we need to kind of remember that even the technology in itself is growing. It's trying and testing a lot of things. Uh, as far as IP is concerned, it will sooner or later have to go the open source code route, like the way we've looked at more open source softwares and the restrictive softwares, GitHub being one of the finest examples. It will sooner or later have to take that route where it's very clear whether it's, let's say, an open blockchain or whether it's a private blockchain, whether it's a public blockchain. If yes, then who shall have the intellectual property protection, and even if they do, what part of blockchain is it that you're really trying to patent? So it will do, I do believe it will take a few more years for it to have a definitive answer. Till then, agreements and an understanding and protecting to the best extent under the existing IP is the best solution.
That's interesting. I still have my own questions to ask. Looking at it, we have many startups in the blockchain and crypto ecosystem. What I want to ask now is how can these startups and companies engage your services? How, in what areas do they need your assistance as a legal firm? Cherish.
Yeah. Um, let me take it. Let me take you a few years back. All right, when we had this increasing interest about blockchain and more specifically about cryptocurrencies, and I'm talking about the golden era of ICOs, 2016, 2017, where we had so many projects out there following the formula of ICO. I'm not discussing now the legitimacy or not of these projects, but definitely there was a huge trend out there. So because these appear to be, relatively speaking, a much more easy way for crowdfunding, and because it is a crowdfunding method, it attracted a lot the interest of new businesses, startups. So startups saw a very good opportunity to enter the crypto world for raising funds. So most of our clients back then in 2016, 2017, the overwhelming majority actually of them was startups. For established companies, mature companies, definitely there was a sort of hesitance to engage in this market before they see regulations, before they see the legitimacy that they were looking for, let's say, before they make their step into this market. So now, after 3-4 years, now is the time when we actually see an increasing number of established companies interested to engage with blockchain and cryptocurrencies, because they see that this was not just a simple trend, but it's here and it's gonna stay. So they want to take whatever benefit they can get from this. So for lawyers, now is the time, I believe, to test their knowledge and test their expertise in these industries in more sophisticated models, and or if not sophisticated, more understandable models, because exactly they are coming out from established companies that they know what they are doing, they have a plan, they have their business plans in place, they have their targets, they have their feasibility studies there, and they are looking now for a more concrete, solid legal advice on specific things, and not just all over the place, or trying to I don't know if that is a correct word or if everybody agrees, but to legalize in some way a business that is not entirely understandable to an average person.
Okay, Ashata, what is your take on that? How do you think startups and other companies will require your
No,
services? On what areas?
right. No, no, absolutely, absolutely. I kind of completely agree with Charis on this. I think the role of a lawyer is increasingly becoming to also not only churn out documents and agreements, but to consult with the startups and companies as to what exactly are they offering to the investors. Because I think what we have seen quite often, and especially this happens in case of crypto exchanges and custodian services, there's a lot of money transaction happening. There's a lot of money and crypto assets which is changing hands. And what startups often forget and companies often forget, that at a lot of times you may be taking either custody of the money that has been invested, or you may be doing a lot of investment management kind of activities, which on the face of it, prima facie, it looks very simple, but actually from a regulatory perspective, it makes a lot of difference. Especially we are in a jurisdiction which is very regulated, very it's very forthcoming with its regulations. So I think the role of lawyers is increasingly to, from the very beginning, start guiding startups and companies on the right path. Like with our clients, as an absolute mandate, we have to do their structuring before we take on a project. So that's an investment that we put from our side, that we will work with you for at least a week or two to put your project in order in such a fashion that going forward, if there are certain issues that we know you may face with the regulator, we've anticipated that ahead in time. Similarly, as far as the licensing requirements are concerned, different activities when companies are undertaking, they may fall into the purview of very different licensing models in itself. So they may be wanting to do, let's say, just custody services, but before you know it, they're doing something which is as good as a crypto exchange. So I think for us as lawyers, the fundamental idea is to break down into pieces what is it that they want to do, and kind of identify if they are likely to fall in any of the specialized activities and sectors. And so yeah.
Yeah, having heard all these things, how we can engage the services of legal firms and how the ecosystem will be. So we want to look at how the ecosystem, the future of blockchain and cryptocurrency will be with proper engagement of the legal sector. Ashata, still with you, how do you see the future of blockchain with proper engagement of the legal sector?
I think what needs to happen more and more is the engagement of lawyers needs to happen at a much early stage. So startups and companies which are trying to sort of implement such a solution, introduce new products, need to engage a lawyer at a very let's say at somewhere around your first MVP kind of stage, or even before that, where you are putting your business plan in order. Unfortunately, the way we have seen it is the moment you have your technology ready is not usually the moment when you are going to get a license from the regulator. Licensing process takes time, regulatory approvals take time. So engaging with a lawyer much ahead in time is always helpful. Similarly, specifically for startups, and I can't emphasize this enough. It's very very essential to get your investors, your shareholders, your co-founders in order. That's one area of concern that we have seen across different industries, different technologies. Startups end up getting into problems with their investors and with their shareholders. So having a proper legal structure when it comes to just basic corporate structure is extremely essential if you're trying to run a successful business. So even for that, you need to approach a lawyer a little ahead of time.
Thank
And
you very much.
engaging.
Okay, thank you very much. Charis, how do you see the future of blockchain, cryptocurrency with the proper engagement of the legal sector?
4 or 5 years ago, I would be very concerned. But nowadays, I think that I'm sure, not I think, I'm sure that there is a future, and there is I'm very optimistic, all right, about the way that things are moving. And I believe that the more we find the more we approach the right formula to converge, the principles and the ideas and the methodologies that the new technology and cryptocurrencies support and advocate with the conventional system, because this is what happens nowadays. I mentioned before decentralization, anonymity. So the more the regulators understand that those things are not necessarily an enemy to the conventional system, but they can take advantage of them in order to improve current methodologies. I'm talking about, for example, transaction monitoring, anti-money laundering, detection, and so on. So since as long as we see this formula becoming a reality, we are all very more optimistic about the future of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And definitely the big question that remains to answer is where and if we want actually more regulation or less regulation about these new industries. I have to admit that I'm not a huge fan of over-regulation. I believe that when you have over-regulation, you simply kill the business, right? But on the other hand, I believe that, and I want to see regulation there, because regulation boosts the confidence to businessmen, to the business world, and have more people, more businesses engaged with those two industries. And here is where we stand at the moment, and I'm happy that there is development, and I believe that this will continue.
Thank you very much, our audience. You have heard it all from them. We have not started taking questions from our audience on Facebook. We are working on that. Maybe in our next edition, we'll start taking questions from people on Facebook. Questions we take are the ones on webinar. So thank you very much. You've heard it all, how the ecosystem, we've been able to address how the ecosystem will be with a proper engagement. You know, many startups and companies don't think that the services of a legal sector is really needed, but they've been able to understand that as you have really explained it. We are very, very grateful to you for joining us. Thank you very much, Charlie, for joining us on today's edition.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and good luck with the wonderful job that you are doing in CoinNewsExtra. And I'm sure that you have a lot to offer for Africa in general, and definitely, as I said before in other connections that we had, Africa in general will benefit a lot from blockchain technology, and I'm sure that more businesses will come on board and see how they can engage more and more with this.
Thank you very much. Ashata, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you, and this was a great session. I think we should have more and more sessions like these, as Shar said. Africa, not only Africa, both Middle East, Africa are absolutely ripe for welcoming this technology. A lot of things and a lot of solutions will come out of it. And yeah, hoping for good times.
Thank you very much, our audience, for joining us today. In case you have questions or anything, you can reach out to our panelists. Thank you very much. We are grateful to our sponsors also. We are grateful to MTech Technologies. We are also grateful to Nimedis, and we are also grateful to Miami University Blockchain Law. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.